Right, it is my pleasure to welcome in Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson, one of the greatest fighters in mixed martial arts history, currently competing with one championship. How are you today, Demetrious?
I'm doing good. I hope you guys are doing well in these crazy times, but the Johnson family is doing all right.
Yes, that is great to hear, man. It is great to hear. So tell me, what have you been doing to stay active, to stay in shape? You don't look like you put on too much, but
Obviously with the quarantine and COVID-19, just putting everybody in social distancing. I've been focused on keeping a healthy diet, obviously, with my dietary restrictions kind of help out a lot. I've been working out. I try to get my heart rate up 3 days a week. Other than that, man, just been busy around the kids. We're homeschooling them now. Been busy creating content via Twitch. And just hanging out with the family. That's all we can do. When everything's closed outside, all the stores are closed, there's not much you can do outside.
Definitely. Yeah. I think it's pretty much what everybody is doing right now. Just kind of finding or getting used to like the new normal. It's quite the adjustment for sure. I had a question that I wanted to ask, because we're talking about, being in quarantine and having things kind of shift. You've known for a long time who your next opponent is going to be. Adriano Moraes. You just won the one flyweight championship Grand Prix, one championship Miss Flyweight Grand Prix. And so that automatically sets you up for the title shot with Moraes. But then, of course, everything went awry with COVID-19. So how have you been dealing with this, like knowing who my next opponent is, thinking that the fight might take place here, but now it's going to be pushed back or whatever? Talk about the adjustments or just how you're handling that.
Obviously, the first, the fight got pushed to be in China, and then everything started breaking out. Then it got pushed to May 29th. Then it got pushed to Jakarta. And they got back. It got actually moved a day closer, it was April 11th to begin with. Now it's April 10th. And then now it got pushed back to May 29th into Manila. And as of right now, with the landscape of things overseas, it seems like the cases keep on rising. Like I said before we started the show, a buddy of mine who's in the military, he told me today that our order is going to get pushed back to May 17th, lifting maybe some restrictions. So my gut tells me that the fight's not going to happen May 29th in Manila. So I know it's supposed to, but I just don't foresee it happening with everything going on. And how am I doing this mentally? I just put it in the back burner. Like, fighting it's something I do, but right now it's non-existent. Like, I haven't hit a bag in maybe 5 weeks, 6 weeks. And so right now it's not possible for me to train for a fight. It is, but we haven't really taken that steps and measures because we don't foresee, I don't even know if I can book a flight to Manila right now or Singapore to be able to get myself acclimated. I have friends who has a family in the Philippines, and they were telling me that it's so locked up over there right now that only one person can leave the house, and they have to have an access card. So with me knowing all that stuff and gathering all that information, for me, it's like, okay, that fight's not going to happen. That fight's not going to happen probably till the restriction gets lifted up and fights are going back and forth, because all it takes is one person. And I know this, and in previous interviews I've said that, I'm okay with organizations doing a closed door event, because one championship has done before, and so has the UFC. And all those athletes who came out of it have gotten COVID-19, as far as we know.
Right.
With that being said, we're at the point now where we're trying to lock everything down, trying to stop the spread of this COVID-19. And the last thing we need is one person to catch it on the way over to the event. And the next, that person has it, and it becomes a big giant cluster. So for me, taking all the information, in right now, fighting's in the back burner. Right now, I'm doing the best I can to stay healthy, be here with my children, help them learn, keep on creating gaming content, and just staying healthy.
So, since you're having that time off and you're having this great, look, a lot of people, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world right now. Everybody's dealing with quarantine differently. I don't want to sound insensitive, but for me personally, It has been a good opportunity to reconnect with my family because I'm always traveling. I'm always gone. I've been able to reset, kind of assess things, get to things that I hadn't gotten to before. My biggest concern, like yours, is making sure that there's as much of a handle on this as possible so that the quarantine doesn't go to waste. So that all of a sudden, like you said, there's like another spike because everybody's out. And I know that, the effects it's having on the economy and people's lives, but, safety ultimately in life is should be everybody's biggest concern. And I agree with you on that. So with your relationship with One Championship, I just was curious on your take with the Apprentice One Championship edition, what that's like, what fans could expect, what it's like working with your boss, etc. And just, want to know if you wanted to share any of that.
I think it's fantastic. I was going to submit a video like, hey, Chatri, you need me to clean up dog poop. You need me to run down the street and get some milk. You need me to take out the trash. You need me to wash the dishes. I'm your boy. You need me to protect you as well. Hand-to-hand combat, I got you there too. So I think it's something great. That's one of the things I love about One Championship is that they're dabbling their hands in all types of content creation, right? So they're already into One Esports, where they're creating, Dota 2 Internationals was supposed to take place in Jakarta, but obviously that got postponed due to COVID-19. Obviously now they're doing the Apprentice, One Apprentice, which I think is fantastic. The winner would get a $250,000 salary to be able to work for One Championship. So I think it's great to keep on creating content because at the end of the day, the world wants content. The world wants, reality TV. And obviously right now we can't put on live fights. I don't know how the structure is going to be with the One Apprentice going forward with the situation the world is in right now. But I think fans and everybody around the world are going to enjoy this side of Prince because now people are going to say, okay, what does it take to be able to work for Chatri or One Championship?
For sure. Now, obviously, and we're talking about working for One Championship and working with and for Chatri, you've had the opportunity now to work with both the UFC and One Championship, essentially the two biggest mixed martial arts organizations in the world. One Championship holding down the eastern portion of the world, and the UFC having most of the control in the western portion of the world. Talk about some of the differences. We had a conversation once at the time that we met previously, and we were talking about a lot of the different things. But talk a little bit about some of those differences.
Well, I would say the biggest difference is that I truly feel with One Championship, it is an international sport, meaning that I've been in the locker room with every different nationality that I didn't even know out here that dialect, from a Thai, Vietnamese, Filipino, Japanese, Korean, Chinese, American, Dutch, in multiple fights. And obviously I'm traveling around the world doing that. And then with the UFC, they do have international athletes, but not like it does. Like I feel like a truly foreigner over there when I'm in Japan because I am a foreigner, obviously. And the biggest thing is that I feel like with One Championship, they're trying to tell a story to where in North America UFC, they're trying to sell a fight, which is totally fine. That's just their motto. And with One Championship, it's a home martial arts where it's not just focused on mixed martial arts. It's focused on celebrating the martial arts, the values of it, with kickboxing, Muay Thai, mixed martial arts, even boxing, and even done submission grappling matches. I just watched the Gary Tonin versus Shinya Aoki. Fantastic. I thought Shinya was going to tear him up, but Gary Tonin surprised me.
Gary's real, man.
He's real. But taking all of that in consideration, they're both their own separate entities. You know what I mean? And I think, and obviously now with One Championship, launching the One Apprentice, UFC obviously has, I don't even know if they're still doing the Ultimate Fighter. Well, I think it's staying as like Spike the Contender Series, but two different companies, and that's what I would say the biggest difference is that one company's focused on just selling fights, and one's working on building heroes for each of building heroes. I mean, you look with they've done Along Song, how he is to the Burmese Python is to his Myanmar people. I mean, it just goes on and on.
Yeah, I mean, if I don't know anybody who hasn't had an opportunity to see it, people talk about like the way Conor takes over and the way the crowd responds to him, especially if there's a large Irish contingent. If you see the atmosphere at a one championship event in Myanmar when Aung is fighting, it's something, just the electricity there for him is insane. And when you think about the fact that Aung did compete in Bellator and in some other organizations before now, but nobody was able to ever capitalize on him and his stardom in his homeland like one championship. So that is definitely something that has to be recognized. But I want to talk a little bit about another aspect of it. I remember once you kind of broke this down for me. You're talking about how the pay-per-view points work. And I know that UFC has a different system, but I thought that your explanation was fascinating, especially since most people have no idea how that works. So you are one of those people who I felt like throughout most of your career, and this is just my opinion, I felt was underappreciated as one of the top champions in the promotion and in the sport. Could you tell us like a little bit about how that works, and then how somebody like you may actually not get the push or even maybe the compensation that they're supposed to get under that system?
Wait, and before you answer, I'm sorry. Before you answer that, I want to, for Brian's sake, because somebody went at Brian after one of our shows in the comments, right? And so I know Brian's asking this because he kind of wants, he wants the expert to redeem him. But also, I'm going to say, in addition to that, okay, if you could also express how what the commission presents as payment might not necessarily be what fighters get paid. So we kind of want to establish that too. Like when you fought for the UFC in Nevada, for instance, would there be a case where what the commission reported to the media would be different than what you took home? Meaning that you could be earning more money than is being reported to the commission.
Gotcha. Okay. That's a very complex question. So obviously give you layman's term. So obviously I have no idea what that structured deal is, obviously, with ESPN and the UFC with the pay-per-view going forward. But back in the day, it would basically be a simple thing that you have to hit a threshold. So for example, let's say somebody sold 500,000 pay-per-views, right? And then there's basically a minimum threshold that you would have to meet even to reach any type of compensation from that pay-per-view buy. Then after you met that minimum threshold, then you can actually start getting compensated for every single buy. It could be $6, it could be $85, who knows? Every contract is totally different, obviously, right? And then that's pretty much how the structure of the pay-per-views would go, from my understanding. And now for your question, Peter, where let's say, in Vegas and some parts of the world, you have to, the organization has to basically reveal your salary, right? So before the fights happen, it'll be like, oh, this guy's gonna make $500K, this guy's gonna make $250K to show and win, all that stuff. Sometimes, I think it's been said in the past, there's locker room bonuses. I have no idea if they're still doing that because I'm not part of that company anymore. But I've heard stories in the past of Matt Hughes getting monster locker room bonuses, BJ Penn as well. And, that's the difference. So, and I've heard some athletes don't like all of their money being displayed of how much they make. So, for example, if BJ Penn was to say, oh, he made 80 and 80, I don't think that's what he really made. I think he probably made more on the back end because a lot of people don't want their financials blasted out there in the world.
Well, also you're paying tax on the commission dollar versus that locker room bonus.
Baby. Vegas is no tax, no at all. Vegas, no tax. You get a check and that's it. You get to go out the door free and clear. California, they want 8%. Toronto, they want like 10%. New York, I have fought there because that's the reason why, because they want your money.
Right, but the one thing you can't escape in this country for foreign fighters is the government's taking that federal tax regardless. So you come in from Australia, you come in from Russia, you come in from it, they're taking it right off the top of whatever's, and at least this is how it is in boxing. So the government's taking that 30%.
Yeah, depending on where you fight. Like if you were to fight, I think the biggest thing, as for me, when I used to compete in North America, I always wanted to compete in Vegas. The reason why is because I wanted to pay no taxes. I was just being honest. Like, I don't pay taxes. If I go fight in California, they're taking 8% right off the top, right? And then after that, I come back home. I just feel like that 8% they take off the top, I can use that somewhere else in my company.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And the point we were making is, wouldn't you rather pay 8% of 250 than 500? I mean, and that was one of the points we were making, and that fans shouldn't
100%.
assume. Right. That fans shouldn't assume or diminish what they think a guy is getting paid, because they might not have the full picture.
Yeah, I mean, because a guy tried to imply that Conor made $2 million for the Cerrone fight, and it's like probably more than that, because that's what was reported, and that's just the way it works, And so
actually, the guy went on to tell Brian he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, well,
I mean, I can tell you right now, Conor probably made $2 million flat fee, right? Mm-hmm. That's what the commission displayed, and then after that, you're taking pay-per-view count. Let's just say, I mean, I don't know how the number, but let's just say he did 1 million buys. Mm-hmm. So let's just say roughly, say Conor made $4 million. And then, yes, he's a foreigner. So, but knowing Conor, if he was smart, he would probably have a business set up here in America to where he doesn't have to pay the full, taxes on it. And then I'm sure it's sitting here in America where he's probably going to pay his 37% on that, and then he might just leave that money in this country, and then maybe when he's finally retired, there's a huge system you can run this thing. That way you can avoid paying taxes. All professional athletes do it, whether it's I remember a football player used to do it. He used to run it through his nonprofit organization, and then his nonprofit organization would pay him. That way he had to pay tax on it. So there's a huge loophole that the athletes need to look into.
Absolutely.
That's around you have to be paid all taxes.
And I think it was more so that, the argument that we were trying to make, it wasn't even an argument. We were just having a conversation, but, people go into the comments and they get a little bit out of control.
You're a streamer, you're a streamer, you know all about comments.
And it's not like I disagree. It's like, this guy's a lying weasel, that guy knows nothing, so.
So speaking of streaming and comments, I know that gaming, you and I both share that passion. I'm a huge gamer. Talk about some of the stuff that you've been streaming most frequently or most recently now, some of the stuff that you're on right now.
The most recent one is Escape from Tarkov. It's a first-person hardcore survival shooter. Mm-hmm. It doesn't get a lot of views when I'm playing it because it's very, very technical game. It's very complex. Mm-hmm. Obviously, when I picked up streaming, I didn't start streaming for viewership, which means if I were to play Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, Warzone right now, I'm pretty sure I'll probably be maybe the 125 to 150 viewer count. But instead of it playing Escape from Tarkov, it's been about 50 to 70. But I stream because I love to game and interact with my community. I'm not streaming to just to stream just to get views, as you can say. So Escape from Tarkov is the one I've been playing lately.
Okay, so if you liken it to something from a genre standpoint, would you say like Dead Island with less action, or?
Man, I would say I would compare it to The Division. I don't know if you ever played that. It's a game, Tom Clancy's Division, and first-person view Call of Duty. That's the best way to describe it because you start with the loadout, and when you go into the world, if you play the Division, you play the Dark Zone. Whatever you gather and you die, you lose it all. In this game, if I come with the M14A, if I come in with, I think last night we went, my loadout was probably about maybe $500,000 to $600,000 rubles. That's what it's called in the game. And I died and lost every bit of it. Everybody, I came out butt naked. So I like how hardcore and how punishing it is. It's unforgiving. Like when you play Call of Duty, it's a great game. There's nothing wrong with Call of Duty, but when you die, it's like I died.
I respawn real quick. There's no cost. There's no cost.
There's no gut feeling where when you lose, you lost. Like I'm pissed off. Like when I died, and I died from a hacker last night. We were all pissed off. We're like, wow, there goes 700 G's right there, boys. Well, I'm gonna go do something else right now because I'm pretty pissed off. So that's why I like the game. It gives me more there's just more on the line when you die and when you lose and when you win.
It's funny that you make that analogy and you set up that dynamic, because that's something that I've always wanted to see in a combat sports video game, right? Because pretty much every combat sports video game right now pretty much disregards everything that has to do with stamina. It's, you can kind of just throw, and you eat all types of shots that, if you have participated in combat sports or you've ever played any of those, you've played any of those games or you watch combat sports, that human beings don't take the type of shots that they can take in like EA UFC or some of the other combat sports games. Is that something that, as a gamer, do you think that in a combat sports fight, it could take one shot. You could be dominating the whole fight, one shot, and it's over. Would you ever want to see that type of an element in a combat sports video game? You think that would help it?
I think there are elements in that. There are elements like that. If you look at Street Fighter V, there's some characters who have a lot more speed, a lot more stamina. Not how we view stamina. For example, in Street Fighter V, there's a new character that just came out named Gil. He's very slow on his return. So if I hit somebody and they block it, for me to come back to home, to neutral, it takes long. We call them frames. That's what we call them again.
Cool
down. Frames.
Yeah, it's cool down.
And even in Tekken 7, there's still stamina where some guys are just slower than the other guys who are faster. And the guys who are slower, they hit a lot harder than the guys who are faster, they hit a little bit less. So that's how they give and take that. But as to related to actual fighting, where it only takes one shot, I think that'll be unrealistic in a fighting game. But they do call it the touch of death, to where if you're playing Marvel vs. Capcom 3 or Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom Universe, you get hit once, if they find an opening, you might as well throw a controller because it's game over. Even in Tekken 7, if the opponent gets a combo on you and juggles you, you're pretty much with 30% life left. And so that's pretty much that one-hitter quitter.
Yeah, and Puma, I know that Puma used to have some combos. He would start comboing the throws, and it was like if you missed your window to
you're pretty much
the combo, you're crocked. So it shouldn't be easy, you know what I'm saying? But it should be. I think it should be present, especially if you're talking about like a UFC game or an MMA game or a boxing game. Because if we're talking about delivering some realism, I want to see somebody be able to land the shot Demetrious Johnson landed on Joseph Benavidez and ends the fight. I want to see that possibility. So, I got to ask this question though. Your last fight with the UFC was against Henry Cejudo, and it was a very close loss. It was a rematch. Is there ever anything in you that's like, you know what, I'm not like obsessed with it, but I'd like to see that dude in one championship so I could get that right?
To be honest with you, no. I never think about that at all.
Yeah.
Just the type of person I am, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if I have that same thought, then I'll think the same thing about Dominic Cruz, Brad Pickett, because Henry Cejudo is my only loss.
Right.
And with that being said, obviously there's so many other athletes that haven't fought and won championship, like Adrian Reyes, he's the next up. There's Kyrie Akhmatov, Jay Eustaquio. There's so many athletes that I haven't even competed against. A loss has happened, right? And you just put them behind you, move forward. Now, if he were to come to one championship, that's a totally different aspect. But right now, I know he's about to fight. I think Dominic Cruz.
Yeah.
And so that's what he's doing in his career. So I always focus on my own career, what I can do better to keep on building my brand. But yeah, that's where my head's at about that.
Yeah, and one championship is continuing to grow its brand. I mean, the footprint keeps getting bigger. I mean, this past weekend, I know they partnered with Global Citizen to raise money for COVID, and I know they used athletes in their network to to participate. What do you think about those performances?
I think they're great. I mean, I think my initial response, I was like, oh, damn, it's about to be a legit concert. Like, everybody's out. I thought it was going to be like a concert, like a big concert. Like, from the video I saw, I thought it was going to be a concert. But it was typically, everybody at home doing their thing and just put on a show, singing for people. I thought what the artists did was absolutely amazing. I mean, I feel right now a lot of people are searching for content. They're searching for something to watch. Yeah. They're searching for something.
Yeah.
For me, I'm thankful I have video games because I can
Me and you
Like,
both.
I don't need to watch TV. I don't need to watch them. I'll just give me my video games. The kids and the wife, they good. I'll be in there all day.
right.
I don't even need what they're going outside the world. But I think people out there, they need something to watch. So I think what Global Citizen did to be able to get these artists together and be able to put on a show for people to be able to watch something live, I think it was great. Shit, hell, I watched WWE the other day and it was live. And it was 2 people and the rest of them, there was 3 people and nobody in the audience. I was like, this is actually kind of fun to watch.
Yeah.
Just to go, I'm like, nobody's there, dog. So I found it humorous, but I thought the Citizen was cool.
Yes, for sure, man.
Yeah, and in both of those cases, millions of people were watching.
Yeah, millions of people were watching, just nobody in person.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like I said, it was streaming on the One Championship app. It was streaming on Twitch. It was on CNN. I mean, the thing was everywhere. So
yeah, and One Championship. That's what I was saying. Is like, you know, like from a brand perspective, you know, being involved, getting out there, continuing to push that, you know, push forward. I just think that it's all moving in the right direction.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Demetrious, man, it was my pleasure to get an opportunity to speak to you again, man. I'm hoping that we can have you on the show again, but stay safe. Hopefully you and the family are okay. And like I said, hope we get a chance to talk again.
Absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Peter. Nice meeting you. And
Same here. Thank you.
Brian, thank you for having me, brother.
Yeah, I got the movie posters covered up this time. Remember, I told you need to watch The Usual Suspects.
Hey, we got fancy backgrounds now. He's in Chicago. I'm in Miami, so you know.
Right? Did you get a chance to watch the Usual Suspects yet?
You never seen that movie?
When I get time, when I get free time, what I do with it is play video games.
I understand. I'm
and
with
watch
you.
the challenge on MTV. That's it.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, man. Thanks so much, man. Have a good one.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Take care.